complete rebuild, down to the bare case, everything cleaned up, brand new parts all the way throughout, dyno and back out the door. Sealed if you'd like. And with a letter of authenticity that it was built by Porsche Motorsports.
That right there is worth its weight in gold right there. And you guys have that special dyno at PECLA too, right?
Yeah.
Because we did the tour when we were there, and it was outstanding. And you're like, oh, well, this came.
Right. And it's interesting because a guy like Alvin Springer comes in and kind of looks at it as overkill, because back in the day that you just were measuring power and you were doing sweeps. But in order for us to be basically certified to produce the exact same engines as PAG does in Flock, we have a dyno that needs to do step testing, needs to be very accurate, needs to be 100% correlated with Germany. And we also have the advantage of having the eddy current electric as well as the water brake. So we can spin over a 962 engine we just built to any RPM we want and only look at friction and oil pressure.
That's awesome.
So we don't have to worry about the timing, we don't have to worry about the ignition system. We can check the mechanical.
Make sure that's blueprinted properly.
Yep. Yeah. So it's a big advantage, and we are actually going to be doing service for others. I was talking with the fine folks at 901 Shop. We're dominant in their market area.
Yeah.
We recognize there are certainly lots of shops out there that do a fantastic job.
Yeah.
And we'd like to work with them. We can dyno some of their work if they'd like, and do the engine side of their verification process. Cool. And we've talked to Ray Schaefer and Jonathan Sieber about what if a classic customer got a rebuild, wanted to see their engine on the dyno.
Yeah.
And we're turning it, speaking of experiences, we're in the Experience Center out in LA, but we're turning it also into an experiential opportunity for the customers of a historic car. Yeah. They come in, we tear it down in front of them. Then they come back and we dyno it in front of them.
That's outstanding.
And we just get them involved to see what's going on. Really and frankly, when you're talking to a guy about, frankly, a 6-figure rebuild on a classic, historic race car, it's a big discussion.
Help him understand after.
But, I've also
Which is fitting because we're at a historic race event right now as well, and anybody who's listening owns a historic car that is doing that. You guys, it's incredible because when we visited you guys, I think the last time we were out there for Luftgekühlt, I think you guys had a GT1 and a 917 in there that you guys were refreshing that were customer-owned cars.
Yeah.
And
it's a rebuild and restoration.
Where else in the world can that happen other than, and then of course, like you said, you want the authenticity because it's Porsche. It's not, and there's nothing wrong, and we're not saying this in an ill way against an independent, but to have that gold seal essentially and just to have it be like, this is how it was when we did it. Back when that car was new.
I mean, down to the color of the nylocks that Andal used to use. We get special nylocks because the color of the plastic and the nylock was a specific thing they did.
Yeah. And I think there was a 935 there that you discussed that was on an engine stand, and you were pointing out things, that were kind of, I don't want to say done incorrectly, but let's just put, it just was because it was at an independent, but that's not how the factory did it.
And,
and we get what people were trying to do just to get it out on the road, at that time.
Absolutely.
But, that customer who finally ends up getting that car, can come in and have it brought back properly.
And that's the expertise that we're carrying forward. Alvin Springer is still a consultant for us. Dieter Eisenhofer also comes in of Andal fame also. Chris Jensen, our dyno operator, has made it a passion to learn the old systems. We've got great partners like Brian Sakata, who does a lot of wiring with us. So we can, if needed, work with a modern ignition system and fuel injection system. But our specialty is we can put it back exactly the way it was. We can run the turbos the way they ran, the intercoolers. We can run the old Motronic Bosch 1.2, 1.4, 1.7 exactly the way they were, and we still know how to service them and make them reliable and repeatable.
And you also do repairs in the sense of, we talked a little bit, where did that one car crash, the RSR car that we talked about? Was that at Spa or something like that?
Bathurst.
Bathurst, yeah. And then they sent that car to you because it went tail in into like a barrier, and they're getting that fixed through you guys,
and
correct?
we can do retubs. Most of the time, we're just doing powertrain services for the modern customers, but we can do any chassis service as well. We won't do traditional race prep between weekends, but if somebody has a big project, wants us to do it, we'll quote it out. And, I mean, one of the things we've realized that we have an advantage on is actually our shop rate. We've got some of the most experienced guys in all of Porsche Motorsport, and certainly some of the most experienced people who touch Porsches, coming from their background, 20 and 30-year veterans. and we're at a shop rate that you can't get at your local Porsche dealer.
Yeah. And then another thing we talked about too, I thought it was interesting to bring up, and it was a big takeaway that I had when we visited you back in LA, that you discussed, you're going to pay full rate at the track when you grenade a transmission because you don't have a backup transmission, which you guys do give advice. You say, hey, you should be carrying, you're a race team. Don't rely on the one that's in the car. And so where I'm going with this is that you guys offer race support.
Yes. So that's the other thing about Porsche Motorsports North America. Nick Lester heads up the customer team, and they go to all the tracks and do race support for SRO, IMSA, and any cup race, as well as Trophy West. So we're going to be at the track with a truck, with parts, with our technical team who can plug in, and they bring back all of the data. So I can look at it, and I know next year that I will expect 20 cup engines in because there's 20 current cup cars at over 80 hours. It's a 100-hour service.
Exactly.
So we can look at the prediction, and we're getting to the point we'll call the teams and say, look, we noticed that you're 2 or 3 races away from a rebuild. But and that's the customer support side of the operation is you don't race a Porsche, you race with Porsche. We have the biggest track presence. We have the highest degree of technical support and part support at
I'm glad
event.
you said that too, because there's a lot of people that don't understand that facet of it, because there isn't very many brands that offer that kind of level of team support that can say, hey, okay, your weekend's not down because we're here, and we're going to help you out.
And it's not going to be cheap. It's not the resort you want to go to.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's not what it's about. It's about to keep you racing, right? Like you're out there to race. I mean, at the end of the day, when you end up in those situations, because whether it be like poor planning or whether it be something like you just didn't do, at least you're almost a fail-safe, even though you openly acknowledge, say, hey, this isn't your fail-safe. Like we shouldn't be your fail-safe, but we can help you.
Yeah, exactly. The support to keep everybody on track is multiple levels. And what's really great about PMNA is you can make a business case for its existence. If you look at some of the other customer support programs or some of the other programs, say at a IMSA GTD level, they're marketing based. Somebody in the marketing department of that OEM has to decide they're going to invest and lose X millions of dollars. Porsche Motorsport North America and the customer racing program is self-sufficient. You can put it on paper, it breaks even or produces a profit, and it supports the customers the best way possible. And that gives you that confidence in the longevity. It all makes sense. We sell enough parts to cover the track support. We sell enough services to cover all of the overhead that we have in the shop. So all of it balances out to a real business equation.
Exactly. And the machine stuff that I saw in the shop too when we took the tour was outstanding. It's just unbelievable. And to tell you guys that if you've never been, you definitely need to go on the visit if you can. Set up an opportunity to go see these things, because it really is. It's like an operating room. It's so clean. Everything's so efficient. Everything's taken so seriously there, as it should be. But again, not to speak ill about an independent or something. We all know, you go to an independent and you see like gas rags sitting around, and like the heads are open, they're not covered. Nothing. Everything is very surgically taken care of properly there. It's they're in the profession of taking things seriously and motorsport seriously, and it's a specimen to see. It really is. It's hard to describe because it's just such a clean workshop. It's so beautiful, and even the wreck cars are like, you see them in there, you know that, okay, patient's in here for surgery. They have like a drape on it.
It takes a lot of work, but we try and be good neighbors with the Experience Center, because obviously they're selling that experience and they're selling the show. And as you said, we're behind a glass wall. You can arrange tours to the Experience Center. Come over to our side. Obviously, if you're a customer, you're welcome anytime, and you can come over and we'll show you around. Most of those technicians came from at least a dealership, and many of them from Andile. And it is an interesting change for them to be in this basically fishbowl environment.
Exactly, right?
So,
where people are literally, and you could speak to this, and we've been in there, there's people on the glass looking at people taking tours, or you opening up cars and looking in those things.
Well, we always joke, we're wondering when they're going to start throwing peanuts at the glass.
Yeah, exactly, right? Or bubble gum sticking stuff on there, like, get out of here. I think another thing to touch on, like your staff, as far as the technician and the knowledge, like I give those guys a huge round of applause. Like, just the whole, like we discussed many times, the experience level, the combined years of experience that those gentlemen have that are working on those engines. I wouldn't want my stuff to go anywhere else. I can't believe it. It's, I mean, we're talking decades and decades of experience.
I'm so proud of the team and so privileged to be able to support them and the brand. I mentioned Erik and I mentioned Chris, but Derek, who's here this weekend, Kevin, who's out right now getting a little wrist repair. He's a great guy, going to be back soon. We've got Dustin. Jim Levine's been there for years. He's run the shop on and off and been amazing. We've got a couple new guys. Mark has joined us. But I tell you what keeps me up at night is succession planning. I mean, hiring the next generation who's going to take over, because Alvin's still around. Erik is absorbing and knows so much of the mechanical content. Chris is picking up all the engine tuning content. But to have that next generation, and to be...
It's a challenge, right?
Yeah.
So I'll speak. I'll be the ill guy on this one. So I'm going to tell all you young guys out there, if you want to come work for them, we don't want to hear you complaining about working on a 993 RSR motor just to wash it off in the parts cleaner. That's actually a super upgrade, because back in the day, Erik can attest to this, when you wanted to get into a shop, you swept the floors, you cleaned the toilets before you got to touch anything motorsport. So I'm giving you fair warning. If you get an opportunity, you better be about it, because to get an opportunity like that is second to none. It really is, because that's the next generation that's going to carry over this motorsport, and you need to look at it more of lineage instead of a temporary job for you. Like, this is history for you to learn these things, and that knowledge and wisdom is unbelievable. And you should approach it that way, as opposed to coming in looking at like, well, I don't want to do that. I'm washing parts today. And it's like, well, don't look at it that way. You're washing a race engine, and you're getting an opportunity to look at how a race engine before you start assembling and rebuilding it. So there's process here to this, guys. You don't get to walk in. Like, that guy didn't accumulate 30 years at Andal doing race engines and building stuff like that overnight. He didn't walk in and say, I don't want to clean the windows on the car. That's not...
Every one of them has a different story, and every one of them started... Well, in anything technical, you always...